Okay, we are live, and as I can see here, we are going out to the world. So we are worldwide right now. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. As it's titled, I am watching the A's and Angels. The good guys just took a 2-0 lead in their first at-bats, and as part of the exclamation point on that, Matt Olson with another homer. I'm telling you, 15 games left, including tonight, but the flirtation with 40. I made a big deal out of that, probably prematurely, about 3 weeks ago, and then he kind of fell off pace, didn't homer for 15 games in a row at one point, but now kind of getting back to that clip, and he's going to make it interesting, it does seem like, down the stretch in terms of getting to 40 dingers. Let me just take a quick look here, make sure that the stream's rolling still. It is. That's always a concern, especially when I do it here from work. I want to make sure that the connection is solid, that you can see me and hear me without any issues. Let me also just send a quick tweet to everybody that's out there and may want to tune in. Let me take that off there. Just give me 1 second here. I've got a couple things I want to get into here actually while we wait, while we actually wait for the Q&A part of this. Because there have been several things on the forefront of my mind. I actually want to begin with Chris Davis. Not too many people have talked about KD lately. So, let me see if I do this correctly here. Bang, there we go. So let's talk about Chris Davis for a second. We know what he did in AAA. I mean, even a step before that, we know his whole backstory. Got traded to the Texas Rangers. They DFA him after an early season injury. He spends basically 2 months, sitting on the couch. And I think that's a disrespectful thing to say. Clearly, looking at him, I don't know that that's exactly what he was doing, but he was out of baseball entirely. Got an encouraging phone call from Matt Chapman to come back, give it a try with the A's. They made it work. And look what KD did. I mean, they signed him to the minor league deal. They initially assigned him to just go to Arizona, take some swings, go to the complex league is what it's called. Basically like an in-house league. Next thing you know, he's promoted to AAA. And while he was down there, 10 homers and 25 runs batted in 16 games from August 12th through the 31st. The home runs and the RBI were the most in the majors or minors over that span, right? So nobody hotter in all of professional baseball than KD from that span. And that got us from mid to late August going like, wow, I mean, what are the chances? I mean, and it did seem like a little bit far-fetched at that point because you didn't necessarily know how seriously the A's saw that, took that, wanted to translate that. It turns out he got the phone call September 1st. And when I remember seeing the news, it was partly surprise, but also a little bit of you get that good sentimental feeling about it. Like this makes sense. This is going to work out well. And it really has. I mean, you take a look at his stats here ever since being called up on September 1st, 8 for 26. That's a 308 average. 3 doubles, 2 RBI, 9 games with the A's. He started 6 times. Now, let me also say that this is kind of the role I expected him to be in. I didn't know that he would get called up, put into an everyday DH role. That to me wasn't what I was expecting. This is what I was expecting in terms of opportunity. And you got to say, for anybody on the team, whether it's 26 at-bats or 260 at-bats, to be hitting 308, that's saying something. Now, I know that he hasn't gone yard yet. There have been a couple times where he's hit one off the wall. It's been close, but he's also made loud contact. He's been a hard out, has struck out a few times, but again, that was always in Chris Davis's, portfolio, that he was going to hit for loud contact and occasionally he was going to strike out. So I'm here to say that I think calling him up and putting him in this opportunity was absolutely the right move in retrospect. And it was a little bit hard to believe, in the final 10 days of August, and you saw what he was doing. You're like, well, I don't know if this makes sense. And it's such a critical time of year. And do the A's even have the right opportunity to give him? And they did. And he's made the most of it. And I also want to say this too. pinch hitting 3 for 12. Now that's only a 250 average with a, oh, wait a second, the double, the homer, the walk, and 2 RBIs, the pinch hitter. I take it back. I take it back about the long ball. But you understand my point here. That's even a harder situation for him to be in not starting that day, being ready. Like, that's hard on anybody. But the fact that, he's hitting 308 when he starts, or overall, I should say, and 250 as a pinch hitter, I really like the decision in retrospect to put him back in this situation, give him this opportunity. And I'm here to say that I think this was absolutely the right thing to do. And they did it. And I'm glad to see it. Okay. So that's definitely one thing I wanted to discuss here. There's something else which has kind of cropped up lately. And I don't know if it's a football fan thing, or if it's a time of year where we're past the dog days of summer and I start seeing more of this. But, when you see a fan fight, and these videos are spread so quickly and they're so viral, that to me is among the worst thing in all of sports going. Let me rewind for a second. We know every great thing about sports, whether it's stories, traditions, human interactions. There are so many great moments that sports provides us. It brings so many people together that you wouldn't have expected, or two people that are very different in their backgrounds, and the common bond is sports. Sports gives us entertainment. It teaches us things. It helps us through hard times. It allows enjoyment during great times. Like, there are so many positive things about sports. I don't need to explain that a lot more. I think you all understand that. But I've clearly found what is the absolute worst thing in sports. And that is when two fans at a game who don't even know each other get into a fight. And it's for everybody to see, and kids and families, and it starts in one row and spills over to 3 other rows, and it gets ugly and messy. And it's every time I see one, and they pop up on a regular basis on social media. And now in an age of phones, I don't know if it's happening more, or if it's being caught more, or if it's easier shared. I don't know the reason why, the one reason why we see so much more of this, but we clearly do. And nothing makes me more depressed than knowing two people showed up to a game, didn't know each other from a rock before they walked in, and before they started yelling at each other, and before somebody walked over to the other, and then they met, they threw punches, and then everybody piled in, and things get ugly so fast. And that is the absolute worst part about sports. And I'm not here to say, well, don't go to a game wearing the opposing team's jersey. I'm not here to say, don't go to a game and don't have a beverage or two. I'm not here to say any of those things. Like, I'm not trying to change what people do. I'm not trying to change their routines and their traditions, but I am here to say, like, you get all these things going. You got a lot of people chirping and yelling and talking at each other. And a lot of times it devolves into somebody throwing a haymaker. And it always does seem like in these fights, one person is clearly ready for it and the other person is absolutely not ready for it. Now, as a younger person, I guess I didn't care about this stuff as much. I saw it, quickly dismissed it. But I think now as a dad, I mean, do you want to be bringing your child, your young child, let's say your kid's 3, 4, 5, 7, 9. Do you want to bring a kid to a game? And number one, do you want to have all the buildup of that like right next to you? Do you want to have your kid exposed to 2 grown adults who can't handle themselves and are yelling back and forth? And do you want any piece of that? No. I mean, clearly I know what to do. Get up. We're out of here. We're just going to go somewhere else for now. But then that disrupts your experience. That disrupts, you didn't deserve that. It's probably the smartest and the best thing to do. Get away from it before it escalates. But let's say it goes full steam. Like, you want your child to really witness that. And I'm not saying you can shelter them from everything, but as a dad, like, that's literally the last thing I think I would ever want to expose my son to. So that to me is the absolute worst part about sports. I don't see it going away. I've made a video years ago suggesting, and not even saying this needs to happen, but what would it be like across America if they did what some European soccer clubs did, and that is put the visiting fans in their own section. So you don't have a cross-pollination of fans in any one section. Now that just doesn't, here in America, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We're not used to that. That's a total departure from what we do. So I'm not even here to suggest that's a good idea or it should happen, but it does happen elsewhere. That would likely eliminate most of it. It wouldn't even eliminate all of it, if you can believe it. Maybe the real trick is to give you one pass and that's it. The first time you fight in the stands anywhere, you're done. But then I understand it's not fair if somebody was just defending themselves too. So I digress, but I was thinking about this the other day, that I know what is the best part about sports. I absolutely know it. There's many things, but I know what is the one worst thing about sports, and it's fan fights and the fact that they just do not go away. All right. I wanted to get some comments too. Let's dive into the Q&A now. And I actually wanted to get some comments too, because a lot of people, you're here on YouTube right now, but on Twitter, I was bringing it up to some A's fans. What did you think of the YouTube broadcast last night? Quite honestly, it's the first one that I had watched any significant portion of, and it's very similar to what's on a cable network, but it had its differences, and I wanted to see what people's opinions are. So let's just dive right into it here. Gamer Athletics, you can see and hear me. That's great. Hopefully now that I've ranted for like a good 10, 12 minutes to try and get people here, hopefully that's still the case. Yes, Chapman, I did see that. Drove in another run. It's 3-0 A's at last check. I see we're in a commercial break right now. Love the start. Chapped in America. And how about for him to miss those games that he did, 6 of them, with the ankle and shin injury, and then to come right back into the lineup, and last night get a hit, get on base a couple times, play good defense, and run well. Felix, I'm actually, I use a little bit of Safari, I use a little bit of Firefox, and I use a little bit of Chrome. I use them for all different things. What you were seeing before was my work laptop. So let me kind of show you here. My personal Apple, my MacBook's over here. My work PC is right here. And yes, I am using all of them, as well as 2 cameras here. We got a lot going on. But I kind of go back and forth depending on what I'm doing and what bookmarks are where, if that makes sense. That was like the Dodgers, IKEA, Houston asteroids. What? I guess Felix here was talking about the fan fights. To be fair, there are bad apples in every fan base. So you're going to have that. And you're right. The age of social media has enabled that more. And again, I didn't mean to put this on specifically football fans, but I do know, and I do feel like the fan fights happen from August to November of every year, which coincides with the beginning of football when people go out and tailgate, they get hammered, then they come into a game and act a fool. And because it's a once-a-week event, there's really a build-up for it. You can't do that every single baseball game you go to. But I've seen it at baseball games. I mean, look, the old infamous Malice at the Palace, like that was fans fighting players or vice versa. So, I mean, it happens in every sport. I did not mean to pinpoint football, but it kind of seems like that's where I see it the most. When will Oakland get a football team, do I think? I just cannot foresee the NFL ever coming back to Oakland. Now, I guess I could say the same thing about San Diego. In this day and age, with 2 teams in LA and 1 team in Las Vegas, and the geography has changed, right? None in Oakland, none in San Diego. For a long time, there were none in Los Angeles. It's like musical chairs in California and Southern Nevada where teams have gone and where teams have moved. I do not get a sense that the NFL would return. And that's not even a knock against Oakland. but you'd have to start the stadium process all over again. This market is capable of supporting two teams. I think that was proven over the years. Less so in the Raiders' later years when they threw the tarps up on the top of Mount Davis, which they built to expand capacity, and then they tarped it off. They made it bigger only to limit the size. I don't get a sense that football is interested in ever exploring Oakland again. It truly did feel like once that was done, from 95 to a couple years ago, that was it. That was the chance, and I just don't foresee it happening again. And I don't mean to be cruel about San Diego, but how would it work then to have three teams all of a sudden between LA and San Diego? And I know there have been, sequences before where SoCal was busy with football, but I don't see that happening either. I think those two LA teams now with that new stadium, they want to protect geography. And I also think too in San Diego, if I'm correct, Jack Murphy Stadium was demolished. Is that true? Was recently taken down. So that, and I think they're going to build something else there. So if I'm correct, that land is not even an opportunity to tear down and rebuild a new stadium, which obviously land is a part of it for San Diego. Larry, I hope the exact same thing. There's so much to say. It's such a simple comment, but there's so many places I could go to it. Felix, you get where I'm coming from. You feel like it's just the same deal with fans cyberbullying athletes. Yeah, I think to a certain degree. Yeah, and again, it's all sports, it's all teams. I'm just saying with fan fights, it's the one thing that I cannot get over, and I literally cannot stand it. I cringe every time I see it. It literally hurts. You're talking about the broadcaster from last night, Braun, has an anti-A's bias. I know a lot of fans of teams always say that when there's a national broadcast, they don't like the job that the national broadcast did. And that goes if you're YouTube, if you're NBC Sports, if you're CBS Sports, if you're Fox Sports, whatever. And it's only because you are so accustomed to having announcers that talk about your team and talk to your players every single day that they are well-versed, they're knowledgeable, they speak your language. And so when a national broadcast comes in, look, I got to be clear with you. It's very difficult for them to have that level of knowledge or detail or insight that you're accustomed to. And plus, it's just a different voice. I see what YouTube is trying to do differently. Maybe there's still some evolution to it. This is brand new. Will you see more streaming games, I think, in the next decade? Yeah, in one way, shape, or form. I absolutely think you will. But I don't know. It's easy because, and the other thing too, as a national broadcaster, you are supposed to play it as fair as possible. So how do you do that? How do you get excited about both teams scoring runs and this batter's great, but this pitcher's great, and that manager is the best, but this manager's also pretty good too? It's literally impossible to play it that straight down the line, or to play it both ways, that you don't at some point tick off one side when you sway to the other side. So I think that probably also has to be addressed. Michael, hey, not to be too nosy, but how is Ray Fosse doing? We're praying for him. You know what, Michael? There's just not a lot of update to even give you. Ray has just been, and I'll say it simply, he's been very private about it. And what can I say about that? Am I curious / hopeful / pulling for him? All the above? Yes, of course, absolutely. But I also don't want to be pushy. So I honestly, Michael, know just a little bit more than you do, maybe even no more than you do, realistically. But I'm certainly as hopeful as you and everybody else, because I know that's been a side story of this season. Everybody's talking about the team and the stadium, and clearly Ray's history with the franchise and being an everyday fixture on TV and radio broadcasts. And when that goes away, it's a different feeling, and it's a shock factor for sure. Larry, that is that is very kind of you. Just realizing that I definitely should have moved this computer a lot closer. To reach over here and get the comments is harder than I wanted it to be. Rocio, Martin. I'm sorry. I butcher so many names, which is bad for a broadcaster. It really is. I apologize. See, now that I've moved it, look at the little graphic right here. It's like glitching. Shouldn't have touched it. I knew it. Yeah, I realize that's on people's radar. Oakland will get a football team, not a football team. Yeah, I don't know that soccer is ever, I mean, with the, the Quakes being as big as they are and as built up as they are, it'd be cool. I mean, Oakland has the Roots Soccer Club, which I'm all for, and I think that's, a great addition. But if you're talking like an MLS team, and I got a whole separate rant on that too. Soccer is amazing to me, especially this time of year. You walk around a park in the East Bay, and so many adults are playing soccer on a Saturday or to like tomorrow morning. I guarantee. Go to your local park where there's a field. There is an adult soccer league there. So you got all these people playing soccer in America. Why are they also not huge fans of the game to boost ratings here? Why aren't MLS ratings and attendance like through the roof? And maybe even here regionally in Northern California. If I see so many people that love to play soccer, is that it? Is it a weird dynamic of they know the game, they like to play it, but they're just not frequent viewers or attendees of it? It is. I've always wondered about that. Anyway, I'll save more of that for a different time. Let me see here. 6 parks failed to meet MLB dimension rules, as in 2.01. Why does MLB allow these parks to be built? Okay, and you're even telling me that they are San Francisco, Houston, the Padres, the Orioles, Tampa, and the Yankees? Well, you're going to have to explain yourself here, Mr. Go Sharks. I'm not familiar specifically with 2.01. I could pull it up here, but I'm a little bit busy in the live stream. What is 2.01? And you would think that they would not allow that to continue on a long-term basis. But I don't know what you're even referring to. The Chargers lease with the Rams expires in 18 years, and once it expires, they're moving back to San Diego. I don't know. That's SoFi Stadium. It is beautiful, I got to say. And if it's built for 2 teams to both be home there, that would be hard to believe. I don't know. Now that also, to be honest with you, forever, that would be the way I think San Diego would get a team. It wouldn't be a 3rd team in San Diego. It would be one of the LA teams moving back down south. But how many musical chairs can we play here? In a lifetime, you're not supposed to see that many teams make that many moves. I'm sorry. Michael, would hate to even think the A's leave, but you'd assume I would no longer be doing pre- and post-game, right? Would I be Sharks only? You know what, Michael? I've been asked that before. I don't even want to venture my thoughts down that road too far, not just because I'll get in trouble saying something but I mean, I don't know what opportunities would even exist, if that would even be placed on the table, or if people, to your point, would just say, no, thank you. I take pride. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm a local guy. I grew up watching the Oakland A's. It's a hard thought right now to even think of that being different. So I try not to. But that's, to be perfectly honest, for a lot of fans, it's the personal connection. It's the personal sentiment. It's the personal love and appreciation for the franchise. For me, it's also a bit professional. So it's a really hard thing for me to even think about yet until I have to. But I'll keep you posted, and I appreciate your, even bringing it up. Okay, Lester, you just subscribed to say hi and want to know thoughts about Evander Kane's future with the Sharks. Lester, let me put it to you like this. And I heard his interview the other day. I don't know that it garnered him maybe the public opinion that he was looking for. I mean, clearly it was the chance to state his thoughts on the record, really for the first time since some accusations and some allegations. And he got the chance to do that. And he was very clear cut about where he stood, where he thought this process was going. And I would have to think that, within the next week, the NHL is going to come out, and they've been investigating, they've been doing their own research, and they're going to say something about all this entirely to try and, paint us a picture moving forward of how it looks for Evander, for his, hockey career, how things go. But let me take it a step back for a second. I feel so unqualified to even have this conversation because I'm not his teammate and I'm not his family member. And as for the family side of this, I'm a dad too, and I'm a husband too, just like he is. And I understand that stuff like that, it happens with everybody. Disagreements of all varieties. And I feel like it's not even my business to say any more words than that, period. So I will leave the family stuff aside. As for him and teammates, and I know what's been reported and I know what's out there. And what's crazy to me is that in all my interactions with Evander, you would never sense that here's a person living with some controversy in life, with a gambling problem that he has now self-admitted, with maybe some issues with teammates that have recently come to light. Again, when I talk to him and the interactions I've had, I've never had a bad thing. Sometimes you can sense that in somebody. You can sense like, there might be more than I can see here. But with him, honestly, I've never sensed that. And that goes to show why I'm a bad person to talk about this. And I'm choosing my words carefully, and I'm only going a little bit deep here because I don't want to be wrong. That's the last thing I'd want to do is add to this. But here's what I will say. As it relates to the specific allegation of throwing games, of intentionally playing to lose games, that's huge. That's a huge allegation. And I also don't see how that's possible in 2018, 19, 20, 21, in any recent decade, honestly. Because players, coaches, there's so much video, there's so many eyeballs on you. And it's one thing for a fan to sit in row 24 and be like, he just doesn't have it tonight. Like, that's a certain instinct. But a teammate on the ice with you and on the bench with you and at practice that morning with you and on the bus with you and on the airplane, they know your inner workings. They know all about you. They know when you have it. They know when you don't have it. They know when you're giving 102%, and they know when you're giving only 92% or 2%. So my point is, there's no way any player across any professional sports league gets away with throwing a game. As for everything else, I'm not certified to comment. I'm not qualified to honestly tell you much more than that. But I do think that's important, that it, on the inside, anybody can see if somebody was not performing to their highest potential intentionally. That's clear as day. If I walk in this studio, there's enough people I've worked with downstairs. They know me. They would know something's not right with me that day. They just, and you understand too, that exact same situation. People know you. They know, and nobody would stand for that continuing. There's way too many hands on deck that would not stand for somebody intentionally losing or intentionally not giving their best effort. But I want to move on because of all the criticisms I've seen, of all the things I've witnessed that have been said about Evander, about the situation, about the interview the other day, and I also recognize it. Like I said before, it went over okay. I don't think it was necessarily the end of it. I don't know that it bridged any gaps that currently exist in any way, shape, or form. I think it was, here's just my comments, simple and straightforward. But here's what I wish for Evander. I wish for resolution. Nobody's talked about that. unfortunately. I wish for personal and professional resolution. And not just work on these things or, make progress, make strides. I literally wish for him resolution. And whatever that means, personal and professional. In his personal life, there are so many things going on with marriage and kids, but I wish for resolution where he and the rest of his family can just be resolved and happy and safe. It's as simple as that. And I don't think what I'm saying is so out there, but I'm so surprised that I haven't seen anybody really say that. I also wish for him professional resolution. And I guess, going back to the personal resolution, he's admitted that at times there was a gambling problem. I wish for that personal resolution as well, too. But for the professional resolution, if there really is issues with teammates or members of the team, I wish for it to be resolved. I don't know the possibility of that because you need two sides to make that happen. You need both to be on the same page, both willing. Let's be honest, it's work. We all know, I'm not telling you anything new, but I wish for him resolution. And I'll say it one more time. I cannot believe that not a lot of people have taken that approach to all of this. They still want to point fingers. They want to bury him even deeper. What's been said is already out there. There's no taking it back. There's questions in terms of legitimacy of everything. I get it. I'm just saying I wish for resolution. And not resolution, hurry up, get this fixed. No. I'm saying whatever has to be right for him as a human being and for his family as human beings and for his teammates and the franchise as human beings. I just wish for resolution. So I went off a long time on that, and that's probably more than I was planning to say to that answer, but I hope that makes sense. Let me see here. As a baseball fan who's one of your favorite underrated players that often gets overlooked by his peers. Matt, that's a great question. And I guess I could span across Major League Baseball, and I'd have to really think about that. But I can give you, honestly, some local examples. And one of them to me, it's a harder example now because this season hasn't gone as expected for him. He's dealt with several injuries. But Chad Pinder, to me, on the Oakland A's, is one of those players that is historically underrated. Now, I say that, but there's a faction of people out there, A's fans, who always say, well, why doesn't Pinder play every day? And this year, like I said, he's been out more than he's been in. So I know that hasn't, that feeling hasn't been on the forefront as much. But I've just always felt like what he provides the team as a leader, as somebody that other players look to and respect, I always feel like he's one of those underrated guys. He's also a great person. I equate that into there too. I could honestly see him. I could see him being a baseball manager someday. And Bob Melvin has already said that. So that just tells you a little bit of the personal side. Holy cannoli. Oh, you know what, Jacob? Can I use that tonight? Is that copyrighted by you? Number 36. How many more homers is he going to hit? Well, after tonight, he's got 14 games left, and he needs 4 long balls. That's amazing because, like I said before, he was on pace for 40 much of this season, and then he went on a span of not hitting one for 15 games, which tied a career high recently. I think that was in early September, actually. But I would love for him, and I want to say regardless of everything else, but clearly you understand, the A's as a team have important ambitions here. I'd love to see him get to 40. I think that would be, he's already, at the career high, but just get to 4-0. There's something special about that. And especially after a year where he hit, He hit 195 last year. I know 60 games and terrible measure of a baseball season, but would love to see him get to that milestone. Oh, Michael, what's my favorite Oakland A's team of all time? Favorite player and greatest moment I saw? Wow, should we just go Stephen Vogt? Are you saying favorite player as in like, Carney Lansford was special to me. Dennis Eckersley was special to me. Dave Stewart was, just kidding. I know he won't see this because he wouldn't give me that time. No, but Stu and McGuire and Canseco and all, so that era, it's hard for me to get the special kid feelings, out of my system and maybe move on to adulthood like Eric Chavez or so many, players from that era. Mark Ellis was a favorite over the years too. And so I kind of take pride in having eclectic favorites, not going for, all the obvious ones. Like, Stephen Vogt, Nick Swisher for a lot of reasons. So it's a hard one for me to sit here and say favorite A's player of all time, but greatest moment, probably game 162 of 2012. They had to sweep the whole homestand, all 6 games, to earn a playoff spot, have a chance to play for the West, and then ultimately win the West in game 162. And when Josh Hamilton dropped that ball out there in center field, it was like the baseball gods were like, here you go. Here's the American League West. And that season was a complete surprise. Going into it, the year before, they had traded away several, prominent pieces. You thought that 12 was just going to be a mop-up job. Turns out, you get Bartolo Colon, Brandon Inge comes over. Everybody's doing the Bernie lean, which that was a bad one. This chair, I was a little worried about it. But yeah, 2012 to me is going to be a hard story for any team to beat. And the Giants are kind of experiencing that right now across the Bay. They're kind of living their own 2012. Different because the A's never got a Chris Bryant along the way or already had a Buster Posey or a Brandon Crawford or Brandon Belt. So, the A's of 12 were a little bit more raw, a little bit more unproven, but they proved themselves at least getting to the playoffs. Here we go. MLB Rule 1.04a. Any playing field constructed by a professional club after June of 58 shall provide a minimum distance of 325 from home plate to the nearest fence. Huh. I did not know that. So you're saying like right field at the Coliseum at Oracle Park, because it's 312 or something, but it's a high fence that it's not 325. That's interesting. There have to be exceptions. They do not. Oh, you're right. Sorry, let me go to your other comment here, which I see. San Francisco's 309, 315, 322, 319. See, and what's interesting to me is like at Yankee Stadium, that's not a high fence at 314. In San Francisco, that is a very high fence at 309 in right field. I don't know. I wonder what's Fenway Park down the right field line. Pretty narrow, I think, or pretty short, I think. What's left, actually? What's the Green Monster? There's got to be an exception. That's an interesting rule. Clearly, I don't think we're discovering something brand new on a live stream here on a Saturday night. I don't think we're uncovering facts that nobody's ever talked about before. But at the same regard, I do not know the answer to that. So I'm going to do a little bit of research. That's interesting. All right, the Cali kid, you've made us all comfortable. Knock on wood. Oh, look, did you see that when I knocked on that, the camera shook? I wonder if this camera shakes too. That one's a little bit more solid because it's on a cardboard box over there. I kid you not. Lester, yeah, you know what? And I guess, thanks for asking about Kane. I take a different approach, and I understand there are some flaws there and there are some issues there, and there are some things there. I don't want to say in detail what I think they are because putting together those pieces are impossible, but I just, nobody's really talked about hoping that he gets all this right or hoping that he can bridge some gaps. And if he's not able to, is he not trying? Are other people not trying? Like we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. I just hope for resolution. Oh, Felix asking the question that's going to tear apart a fan base. Do I like oh, shoot, I'm sorry. I just realized I didn't have the questions up on the entire thing. I am so sorry about that. Yikes, guys. That was really a fail. My bad. Okay, let's try this again. Felix with the question that's going to divide a Sharks fan base. Do I like the original Sharks logo better or the current one? You got into hockey with the current logo, so for you, it's the current one. Well, when I got into the Sharks, I think it was right after they named the team. And there were some, if I recall, there was a crazy list of names. I don't even remember off the top of my head what they all were. We'll do a little bit of research on that. But I always thought, yeah, San Jose Sharks feels cool. And remember that original type font or that logo font where it was like sharks and kind of an arch and the top and bottom were like had teeth marks taken out of them? For me, the original Sharks logo is up there with some of the best in all of sports. Unique, color scheme, triangles, a nice like hockey crest, biting the stick in half, the angle of it. I mean, Terry Smith, legendary designer who put it together and also has done work with the team since then for logos in recent years. Like, he created something amazing. So for me, and in fact, I'm looking at a picture up on the wall over there of Owen Nolan in the original Sharks sweater. And that one just, it hits. It really, you know what? Here, let me see if I can turn this old camera around. Where's Buster? There he is. See, there he is right there. Okay, so for me, it's the original. And actually, when the new one came out, late 2000s, was it 07 or 08, something like that? I didn't like it at first. It grew on me quickly. I saw how it was more modern. Like it takes a while. And that I think is a lesson to any sports fan whose team changes colors, logos, names, whatever. Like we don't expect you to instantly love it. That's impossible. But if you can grow into it in a year or 2 or 3, then I think it's done its job. So for me, crazy I'm saying this, I still like the old logo. Now, I know it looks outdated. When you put it on the ice, you put it on a sweater right now, it looks like 1991, 2, or 3 all over again. It absolutely does. And I don't think the current one looks dated. It doesn't look like it's 2 decades old or a decade old. It really doesn't. But if I only had to choose one, let me put it to you this way. Let's go super morbid here. If I were buried in a hockey sweater, if I were buried in a Shark sweater, I would go with the old logo. There you go. Like, what more could I say after that? That's not a good thought. Let's see what else we got here. Peter, how insane is it that in the entirety of baseball history that Marcus Semien is only the 5th or 6th to hit 40 homers as a second baseman? I saw that. Or was he even the 4th? No, I think you're right. It was the 5th or 6th. There's a handful of second basemen to hit 40. And that's kind of weird because I guess second base is not typically a power position on the field, but why shouldn't it be? You know, you're usually playing a good middle infielder there, probably a smaller player. Maybe it's your leadoff hitter. Maybe it's a player with speed and range, so you're not expecting power. I mean, if you think typically, you know, what are the power hitting positions on a baseball team? Probably all 3 outfielders, probably corner infielders, not really even your catcher necessarily. I mean, it happens. But for whatever reason, second base has never been like a traditional power spot. So yeah, when I saw that Marcus hit 40, and by the way, congratulations to him. I mean, look, I realize all the comments and, you know, the A's should have kept him, and I can't disagree. I mean, The numbers speak for themselves, let alone knowing Marcus and what he meant to the team and all that stuff. But he took a gamble on a 1-year deal with Toronto, and he got, at least market value, but who signs a 1-year deal? I mean, he probably could have locked up a 2 or 3 year deal, maybe for not as much. He went 1 year, maybe less than he could or should have got. Now that 1 year, when he goes back this offseason to renegotiate something new, he can play short, he can play second, he's a 40 home run guy, he can hit for average, he hits for power, great teammate, plays literally every day. I feel like I should be his agent right now, give me a little cut. But he is due for a big payday. He's 31 years old, just turned 31, about to enter the true prime of his career. So I think he's going to get rewarded handsomely. And like I said, to take that chance on a 1-year deal for 21, it's going to pay off for him leaps and bounds in future years. Can the NHL force the Blackhawks to change their logo, just like Cleveland and Washington did? And it's amazing how every sport and every fan base, I should say this, every sport and every franchise have handled this differently. Some have been more pressured. Some have been more responsive and receptive to the idea. Clearly in Washington, they've already, changed the football team's name. And before I get into the Cleveland Guardians, what's wrong with the Washington football team? I know it's different, but it hits, it pops. Why does every team need a logo and a mascot and now a sponsor to go along with it? What's wrong with the Washington football team? Just because you're not used to it here in America, because it's supposed to be the Washington somethings. I get it, but I also don't get it. Why not be unique? Why not capitalize on that opportunity? You're just the Washington football team. It's like in soccer, and I clearly understand that most Americans aren't up on the EPL, but like you don't have, the Chelsea somethings or the Liverpool whatevers. So why does every single team here in the States need a mascot? But going back to your point, I get it. There's a lot of remaining teams in football and also in baseball. I could think of several off the top of my head that I don't know whether they're not getting as much pressure, whether it's their reluctance to even consider the idea. I mean, and I don't need to explain the back and forth on, the public conversation that already exists on these topics. But I don't really know why, to your point, why some franchises and some areas and some leagues just, they're not even like opening up the door to it, or they're just not spotlighted enough. I really don't know. Let me just do a couple more here and then I will sign off. How do I feel about the future of this sport? I'm all about growing hockey. So if I was to introduce a friend to the sport, what would I tell them to sell the appeal to them? That's a great question. I think what you instantly have to do is take said friend to an actual game. Of all the sports that I've seen in person that I've covered, hockey, it's hard to translate on television. HD has done a great job. Like the super slow-mo has done a great job. A net cam and robocams, like technology and humans have done their best. But it is so difficult to translate hockey on television, and especially to people who have never skated and also to people who have never seen hockey in person before. So let me actually back up, because there's something else I would do with that friend before I even take him to a hockey game. I would take them skating at the local rink. And I realized they'd be grabbing the wall and they'd be doing the whole slip slide thing. And I'd probably have to put some buckets in front of them so they could grab onto that. Or maybe I'd help hold them up while I skate alongside next to them. And yeah, I'm no Gretzky, but I could get around up and down the ice a few times. But I would want to expose them to how difficult skating itself is. So there's a respect for that. And then also, I'd want them to see it in person, because I do feel like You cannot appreciate it. The speed, the physicality, the constant changing and rotation of players on line changes, and how it's just one fluid motion. Think about every other sport. Somebody comes in, somebody comes off. It's very regimented, very structured. And it is in hockey too, but you don't stop the game for it. Imagine in basketball. Guy comes off the bench, high five somebody who comes on, and that's it. Like without a whistle. In hockey, that happens all the time. That's the nature of it. So to see it in person, to do it in person, I think those would be key steps. And I think, like I said, all those things in person realized would help them appreciate it more. Hopefully that answered the question. All right, last one I'll do here. What do I miss most about covering high school sports like I used to? Lester, and I appreciate you knowing that and also bringing that up, because I get into this, sentimental aspect of it. I miss, like, how do I say this? When you showed up to a high school to either, record their football game or to do a story on somebody, everyone was so excited to see you. They knew that this was their moment. They were going to get spotlighted. They knew we would do our best job to put them in a positive light, and whatever highlights they had in their game that we had to show, we would show them. Or whatever story they had to tell, we would do our very best in trying to, tell it for them, tell it with them. But I can't say it's the same like when you show up to, if I show up to the Coliseum, like to do an interview. Nobody's like, oh, I was so excited. It's like, hey, Matt Olson, can we do this interview? Yeah, okay, sure, fine. And he's great. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to. Nobody hates me or nobody hates us, but it's just not the same, right? When you're talking to a high schooler, and this is like their big thing, and their family's watching, and back then there wasn't really social media or YouTube, and no other way to share it. So it was like, can I get a DVD of this? But I kind of miss that. I miss the excitement of knowing that all the people that were at that game, at that football game, that baseball game, that basketball game, softball, volleyball, that they would go home and watch it. And that's probably what they were doing back then, and not, on their phone or whatever, swiping for this and that. So it was a different era. I don't know that whole idea of doing a live show like we used to do in the Bay Area, I don't know if that plays or hits the same way anymore. But yeah, the excitement around it, that's probably what I miss the most. So, all right, everybody. I really appreciate you all for being here. I got to fill out my scorecard and get to Kraken here. I can't say that. I can't say that anymore with the Seattle Kraken. Just realized that. But no, I appreciate everybody for being here on the live stream on a Saturday. And we'll be doing post-game in a couple hours here. Hopefully the A's can hang on to this lead, and hopefully it's 4 wins in a row. All right. See you later.